We begin my top 36 remaining wide receiver rankings with wide receivers that I think are probably wide receiver threes. We have Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and Jacoby Myers. Jalen Tolbert is going to see an uptick in production with Brandon Cooks out. The matchup against Pittsburgh isn't ideal, but with Dak Prescott throwing him the ball and with him being probably the third option in this offense now, I do think he has a reasonable amount of upside. Jalen Waddle is playing New England. I don't like the matchup potentially with Christian Gonzalez, and I especially don't like them not having Tua. However, he's one big play away from a massive fantasy day, just like with Tyreek Hill. And so I do think he's an upside play. It's just the floor is significantly lower without Tua. Jerry Jeudy is playing Washington. This is an incredibly enticing matchup. I think that he's a solid, safe floor player. The ceiling probably isn't the best, but he's definitely going to get you more than 0 points. And so I do think with us having a couple bye-week fill-ins necessary, that you could definitely do worse than Jerry Jeudy. Jacoby Myers is playing Denver. With Devontae Adams out, you would expect an uptick in production. However, he's probably matching up against Pat Surtain. And so I do think it's a risky play, but there is a reasonable chance he sees a massive target share. And so you could definitely do worse than him, but I do think there are a lot higher upside plays this week. Wide receivers that I think are probably mid to high-end wide receiver threes, but do have wide receiver 2 potential upside, are Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens, Keenan Allen, and Christian Kirk. Tank Dell is playing Buffalo this week. It's not a good matchup, but he is a good player. He's with CJ Stroud. They should have to score a lot of points to stay in this game. And so I do think he could definitely do worse. It's just the floor isn't what it was last season this year. With Zay Flowers, he's playing Cincinnati. He started out the year as a target monster. The last 2 weeks haven't been very good. It's a middle-of-the-road matchup against Cincinnati. He is a reasonably high upside play. It's just the floor with all Ravens pass catchers is essentially non-existent now. And so I do think he's a risky play, but there is a ton of upside. Tyreek Hill's playing New England. Just like with Jalen Waddle, I don't like the matchup against Christian Gonzalez. However, it's Tyreek Hill. If you drafted him in redraft, I don't see how you can bench him. Just like with Jalen Waddle, he's one big play away from a massive fantasy day. And so while the floor is definitely very low, the ceiling is still really, really high. It's just, he's less likely to hit it nowadays. Terry McLaurin is playing Cleveland this week. While on the surface it is a good matchup, I don't like the matchup against Denzel Ward. And so I do think there are a lot more upside plays this week, but we have seen 2 good weeks in a row from him. And Jaden Daniels is balling out, so you could definitely do worse. George Pickens is playing Dallas. Trayvon Diggs isn't per se a lockdown corner, as we saw against Malik Neighbors. He's more of a ball-hawking cornerback, and so I don't think that George Pickens has the worst matchup this week. I do think he gets a couple chunk plays, and if he scores a touchdown, you're pretty happy. Keenan Allen is playing Carolina. This is a very good matchup. I do expect the Bears' offense to have to throw a lot more to stay in this game, and so I do think that he is a very safe floor play. We just haven't seen a ceiling play yet because the only player that has so far is Rome Odunze against the Colts. But better days are coming for this Bears offense, and I do think this is one of them. Christian Kirk is playing Indianapolis. This is a dream matchup. Christian Kirk and BTJ have easily been the top 2 wide receivers. I think the ceiling is a little bit lower with Evan Ingram coming back, but in what is a really good matchup, I think he's a very safe play with a decent amount of upside, especially if he scores a touchdown. Wide receivers that I think are probably mid to low end wide receiver 2s are Wan'Dale Robinson, Xavier Legette, Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, Josh Downs, Brandon Ayuk, Xavier Worthy, BTJ, T. Higgins, and JSN. Wan'Dale is going to see a lot of targets in this game. Malik Neighbors is out. I do think he sees a lot more of Devon Witherspoon this week, which I don't like for him. But he should see a ton of volume. I don't know who else they're going to throw to besides maybe Theo Johnson. And so I do think he's a very safe floor play this week. It's just in a really tough matchup, the ceiling might not be there, but maybe he gets a lot of short passes. Xavier Legette is playing Chicago this week. It's a very poor matchup for him as well. However, with Andy Dalton at the helm, I think there is a lot more upside for him. I would be cautious this week, but he still should see a good amount of targets. Jordan Addison is playing the Jets this week. It's a very poor matchup. However, he's coming off a wide receiver 7 finish. Maybe he scores a touchdown. I don't think he does in this game, but I still think he sees a good amount of volume. Rome Odunze is playing the Panthers. Just like with Keenan Allen, I do think he's an upside play. I think the passing offense in this game is going to do pretty well. Josh Downs has been seeing a good amount of volume recently, and with Joe Flacco at the helm this week, I think he's a very high upside play, and I think his floor has increased as well. Brandon Ayuk plays Arizona. It's a fantastic matchup for him. I do think Debo is the wide receiver out of the two I want this week, but I still think he's a good player, obviously. And so I think he's a very safe play, and he does have a lot of upside as well. Xavier Worthy is playing New Orleans. It's a very, very good matchup for him. I think he sees a good amount of targets this week, and if he scores, he's going to have a massive week for us. BTJ is playing Indianapolis this week. It's a plus matchup. I think he has the opportunity to have another top 10 finish at the wide receiver position. I really like the upside he's displayed already, and as the season progresses, especially he's had 2 9-target games in a row, and if that continues, he's going to be a regular top 10 to top 15 play for us in fantasy. T. Higgins draws Baltimore. It's a plus matchup. He's been getting a little bit more volume than I expected, and so I do like that for him. If he scores a touchdown, you're going to be happy. JSN draws the Giants this week. He's a very safe floor play. The ceiling might not be the best because I don't think they're going to have to pass quite as much in this game like they did the previous week. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and make sure to check out my running back, tight end, and quarterback rankings as well. Wide receivers that I think are probably high-end wide receiver 2s to potentially low-end wide receiver 1s are Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, MPJ, DJ Moore, and DK Metcalf. Deontay is playing Chicago this week. It's a very bad matchup. However, he's been really, really good the last 2 weeks with Andy Dalton at the helm, and so I do think that he's a really, really safe floor play. I just don't know if it's a ceiling game from him this week. Amari Cooper almost had, an 80-yard touchdown last week. He was going to go off. This is a great matchup for him. I think he has a very, very good week. Michael Pittman Jr., after posting 3 straight duds, had a blow-up game last week. I do think that he has a very, very good game this week against Jacksonville. Their defense is horrendous against the pass. And so I think he's a very, very safe floor play. And hey, maybe he gets that ever-elusive touchdown this week. DJ Moore is playing Carolina this week. I do think he scores a touchdown, and I like basically everyone in the passing offense. DK Metcalf is facing the Giants this week. It's a middle-of-the-road matchup. However, he's been on fire recently, and so he's a must-start in every single format. Wide receivers that I think probably finish inside the top 10, but I don't think are really threats to be the wide receiver 1 overall this week, are Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, and Garrett Wilson. Stephon Diggs has a matchup against the Buffalo Bills. This is a revenge game. I would start him in all formats. I think he is going to be extra motivated to have a big game. Deebo is playing the Arizona Cardinals. I project him to score a touchdown. I think he's a fantastic floor and ceiling play this week. They're probably going to have to put up some points to match Arizona's offense, who's getting Trey McBride back. Garrett Wilson plays the Vikings this week. We haven't seen the production we've been looking for from him yet. However, he's barely missed a couple of giant plays. 2 weeks ago, he almost had a 30-point game. He's played a brutal stretch of cornerbacks. I think we finally have the game we've been looking for from Garrett Wilson. Wide receivers that I think are serious threats to be the wide receiver 1 overall this week are MHJ, Chris Olave, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, JJettas, Jaden Reed, and Jamar Chase. MHJ has a middle-of-the-road matchup. However, he scored a touchdown in 3 consecutive games and 4 total. I think he's a must-start in every single format. San Francisco is going to put up a lot of points, and so I expect the Cardinals to also do the same. And he's a serious threat in the red zone. I do project that he scores a touchdown this week. Olave is playing the Chiefs. I think they have to pass quite a bit to stay in this game. I do think it's an offensive game for both sides. And so I love the floor and ceiling for Chris Olave this week. CeeDee Lamb, we haven't seen the max upside that we saw last year yet. However, against Pittsburgh, it isn't a good matchup, sure. But with Brandon Cooks out, I do think that just adds and further cements his target share in this offense. And so I do think we get a good game from CeeDee. Nico Collins is playing Buffalo. It's a very bad matchup. However, he's been bulletproof so far, and so you must start him with confidence because he hasn't failed us yet. Justin Jefferson is playing the Jets this week. It's the worst matchup you can draw, in my opinion at least. He's probably going to see a lot of Sauce Gardner. However, it's Justin Jefferson. He's a near lock for 20 points basically every single week. And so I do think that you start him with confidence. Just don't expect a crazy game. Jaden Reed is playing the Rams. This is a great matchup. He's been amazing with Jordan Love so far. And so the sky is the limit. He's really, really talented. It's a little bit of a strange profile given that he's not an X wide receiver, but He's really good. He breaks a lot of tackles. He sees run game action, baby Debo Samuel kind of player. And so I think he has a spike week once again, and he's a must start in every single format. Jamar Chase is playing the Ravens. I expect another great game. He's been on fire recently, and he is my #1 ranked wide receiver this week. Wide receivers that I think are probably low-end wide receiver 3s this week are Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and Jacoby Myers. Wide receivers that I think are probably mid to high-end wide receiver 3s are Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens, Keenan Allen, and Christian Kirk. Wide receivers that I think are probably mid to low-end wide receiver 2s this week are Wan'Dale Robinson, Xavier Legette, Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, Josh Downs, Brandon Ayuk, Xavier Worthy, BTJ, T. Higgins, and JSN. Wide receivers that I think are probably low-end wide receiver 1s to potentially high-end wide receiver 2s are Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman Jr., DJ Moore, and DK Metcalf. Wide receivers that I think are probably safe top 10 options, but I wouldn't say are threats to be the wide receiver 1 this week are Stephon Diggs, Debo Samuel, and Garrett Wilson. And then wide receivers that I think are serious threats to be the wide receiver 1 overall this week are MHJ, Chris Olave, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, JJettas, Jaden Reed, and Jamar Chase. All right, so who do I have missing from this list? Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Let me know below in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, if you like what you've seen and heard in this video, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel. Make sure to check out my other positional rankings as well. And thank you and have a good day.